shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 307 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Friday, September 3rd in the evening. We're recording late because I asked them to, and my co-hosts are great, so thank you so much, co-hosts. Joining from Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we got Bodicus.
Yep.
From Nomergon, Ohio, it's Edelweiss.
Hello.
And we've got you, listener. Thank you so much for being here. Extra special thanks to Itinerant Wizard for being our newest producer. Welcome back, buddy. Glad to have you. And thank you so much to everyone that's left the reviews. We go over those in the bonus episode. I don't think there were any this month, but thank you so much to everyone that leaves those reviews. Really helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. Advice. What's going on?
So I finally finished that room that I was painting.
Oh, nice.
the room with 4 very complex windows and 4 doors, and they wanted the inside of the 2 closets painted as well as the trim inside the closet. It was a lot. It was never going to take the amount of time that we thought it was, and I'm just glad to have it done. I also had a Reiki session for the first time, so that was pretty cool. It's a nice way to relax.
Yes.
It is a Japanese lay on hands, or kind of like a healing thing.
Like massage therapy for the soul, but also physically for the body?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was honestly just, I have to force myself to relax because I don't really do that.
And
I
don't know what you're talking about.
Hurting, and yeah, I don't know if it was strictly because of that, but my back feels better now, so.
I can't say it didn't help. Right? You got the thing and now your back feels better, so. Not saying that's why, but it could be. I'm glad your back feels better. Bodicus, how you doing, buddy?
I was saying just before the stream that I'm completely washed in every format. Can't win a game anywhere, pretty much. I've been playing mostly duels and BGs. Duels, I don't know. I just keep queuing up, hoping I get the 2 broken treasures in a row, but I think that they made it so you can't anymore. Maybe you still can get 2 broken treasures, but yeah, it feels like the treasures matter a lot. Like, you could still get a few wins with like the mediocre treasures, but the difference between like getting the one that's rally the troops versus not getting rally the troops is fairly considerable. And rally the troops is the one where every time you play a battle cry, you draw a card and reduce its cost by 2. And so if you have a bunch of battle cries, just every turn you're kind of drawing 2 cards, one of them costs 2 less, and it gets out of hand pretty quick. But that one's a fun one to play with when you have it. And I've even had it in like the spell priest deck that cares about casting a lot of spells, and it's still really good because you still play a bunch of battle cries that give you spells in hand and stuff.
Yep.
And then
I've been playing the Rally the Troops. I will tell you that in original Quest Rogue, very good. Very good
card. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you saying it's good?
I am. Yeah. Also, I think I have all together now in that one where it's all your battle cries are 1 less. And Ace in the Hole, which is the signature treasure for Rogue, that says put a copy of all the cards that were that you played last turn in your hand. If on a previous turn I went Glacial Shard Zola, Glacial Shard Tenwu, Glacial Shard, and then I played Ace in the Hole and I get back all 5 of those, that would be pretty good against a Quest Druid, don't you think? They were unable to attack again.
Quest Druids kind of need to attack.
They don't need to.
I mean, they could wait till your board is full of 7 minions, and then you can't play another Glacial Shard.
My opponent in that game elected
attack.
instead to not play the game out.
Oh, yeah.
They chose not to participate.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I've had some like pretty crazy moments, but I think the craziest was actually against me, where my opponent played Nosdormu on turn 4, and it made 2 8/8s.
Oh, with
That
discs.
gave us both 10 mana crystals.
Oh.
And then, yeah, not that Nosdormu. The
other
Nosdormu.
Yeah.
And then we both had 10 mana crystals, and I was like, oh, I can make really good use out of this, and I started doing stuff. And then they played 2 of the new 6-drop that when it loses Divine Shield, give a
High
card
Lord
+2/+2
Dragon.
in hand.
Yeah.
And it made 2 of those. And then the next turn, they played 2 22/22 Varian Rins with Rush and Divine Shield and Taunt. And then I conceded.
Those seem pretty good.
I wasn't going to beat 2 22/22 Varian Rins with Taunt and Divine Shield.
And they got to draw at least 2 cards. No Rush, so no third card. Could have come back.
No, they had Rush.
Oh,
they had
3
Rush.
cards.
They had all the things. So that was actually kind of a fun thing to lose to. And then Battlegrounds, I'm trying to learn the new format. I might be doing better than I think I'm doing, but I don't really understand what's going on, and I just kind of play cards and hope that my board gets better. But I have to say, like, all of the archetypes feel really fun.
Yes.
It feels like they did a really good job of like developing further into all of the different archetypes, except for I haven't really been able to make pirates work, but I haven't like tried too hard. The only thing I did notice is I played a game against dragons a couple days after it came out, and I was unsure how they got so many stats. I really could not comprehend the amount of stats that they had. It was like thousands of toughness.
Yeah, it was a bug. They fixed it.
No, it was after the bug was fixed.
The bug was fixed today-ish.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was before.
Yeah.
It was probably before, but after people knew about it.
Correct. Yeah, I believe the first hotfix went out yesterday, but there was still a problem, and then they've done, I think, the 21.2 known issues list that we're going to talk about later in the show. It looks like it has 6 updates. So there's been some work done on Battlegrounds and other places. But yeah, the initial hotfix was going to be, I believe, on the 2nd, but then they had to do another hotfix with Whelp Smuggler today. So, yeah.
Well, I wanted to get thousands of toughness, but I had no idea how it worked, so I never was able to achieve thousands of toughness.
Yeah. We'll talk about it in the news, but Whelp Smuggler and Razor Gore were best friends forever for a minute there, and yeah, there are a couple screenshots going around of, like, multiple 950 health Razor Gores, and that's too much health.
Yeah.
It's too much.
It was too much. So, it's been fun. And then, lastly, just a quick note: I was playing Standard, and I heard that they nerfed the big bag combo deck, and was thinking I might play against other stuff, and I did play against a lot of other stuff. I played against a lot of combo decks. Just it seems like now that the best combo deck is not the best combo deck, all of the combo decks are being played now. So played against a lot of Demon Hunters, Garrote Rogues, different Warlocks, Mages.
I would say that Stealer wasn't even the best one. It was just the most visible one. But yeah, there is a lot of rogues out there right now, and Brute DH, I may have had a hand in that, but the deck is definitely still getting better and is definitely popular now and is winning Masters Tour qualifiers, which I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I cannot pilot that deck to save my life.
It is very challenging. Yeah.
I got to a point today where I can complete the final part of the quest, but I'll overdraw the quest reward, so I'll lose on the spot. I had to wait a turn, and then it happened again the next turn. I had to wait a turn, and I just had 3 brutes in my hand that I couldn't get out of my hand because I couldn't draw enough cards, because otherwise I'd complete the quest. And then I died to another Demon Hunter that just played the Fell Spell version that just kills you with Fell Spells.
Yeah. which is going through some transformation as well. There's a build that has cut Il'gynoth for Zai the Incredible. If you have to look up that card, there is no shame in that. It is from
I don't
Dark
anymore.
Moonfarer. Yeah. It is a 5-mana 5/3 that copies the left and right cards in your hand. By the way, it keeps them in those positions. So if you have a skull on the left, you don't have to worry about then having a skull on the right. It copies it on the same side of your hand. Both cards just kind of split. And I will tell you that if you skull into Zai and Jace and copy a 5-mana Jace and then play 2 Jaces in the same turn, your Quest Shaman opponent leaves. It's pretty good. I recommend it. Because if they hadn't left, I would have killed them with, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 attack. It was a lot.
It's a lot of attack. But yeah, it feels like I can't win in any format, so trying to do, I don't know. I'll do something else. Been playing a lot of Hearthstone, though.
Yeah.
Various forms.
That's a feeling. That's a mood.
I streamed Brute Demon Hunter and then... Well, I still like calling it Momentum Demon Hunter. But
Yes,
anyway,
I do too. But people
streamed
know
that
what Brute
deck
is because of the Master Token.
Rogue, and those were not the right decks to stream, but I had a good time. It was... I think I managed to at least break even though I was decidedly worse for playing those decks on stream where my focus is split.
Yeah. Momentum is difficult to play when you're fully concentrating on. I've done also a few momentum coaching sessions, and sometimes you're just like on the go turn, the turn you start after you play card. It's like play any card that says draw that starts on the right side of your hand. Just play them now and click constantly to clear the soul fragments. Like you got to do that, and then we will probably kill them, or we might be one off, or we'll play some brutes. Like we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. It is a very challenging deck to play, both technically and strategically. Fun, but difficult, and somewhat unreliable, but reliable enough to be a meta deck, I guess. As for me, so I had a similar start to the month where I didn't do all that well, but last month was one of the better months in Hearthstone ever for me. I finished rank 79 on North America, which is, I don't normally do the double-digit thing. That's not a thing that I usually do. But I managed to have a top 100 finish for the first time ever on North America ladder, or on America's ladder rather, and pretty proud of that. Don't know how it happened, but I also played a crap ton of Hearthstone, and it's definitely strange kind of understanding a bit more about how the high legend ladder works. You play against the same actual people all the time. Like almost all my opponents are on my friends list. I've run into Mega Gliscor like 6 times in the past day and a half because he lives in Japan and I play in Japan time, I guess, which is probably not great for me, but that's what happened. And yeah, it's fascinating to see how different it is and how effective glides were in a meta where nobody wanted to play minions. But now that the month has started again and there are nerfs to Stealer, like there are a lot more minions. So instead I've just been playing Quest Shaman. I'm rank 3 Diamond 3 with it right now. I imagine that I will get Legend with it shortly. Probably not tonight because I have another podcast after this one. But it's Hearthstone's fun right now, but also, yeah, I am similarly having trouble getting a bearing on the post-nerf, post-September meta, but I'm still just playing a lot because Hearthstone's fun. I do foresee a future where this feels like Scholomance, where like I play a crap ton the first 2 months, then I'm super burned out for the 3rd month, and then the next expansion comes out. We'll see what the mini set does. There are some strategies in this meta that are pretty linear that kind of feel like they're limiting creativity. I don't think you can really try a lot of off-meta stuff unless you really like dying to fireballs. And I don't really love dying to fireballs. So we'll see how much creativity can be found. And also, the new BG's patch is super fun. You were saying, Edelweiss.
Yeah, I actually... So I have been streaming standard because that's like the only thing that I stream. But when I'm playing Hearthstone otherwise, I find myself much more drawn to BGs. Because, while I probably should learn Momentum Demon Hunter and Get Out the Rogue just for like competitive, I have a lot more fun playing BGs right now.
The new
But
BG's patch seems great.
It does seem great. But occasionally I like playing a game that I can stop anytime because my wife wakes up at some point in the middle of the night, and that's then my time to go to bed, because she just like regularly at some point in the night will need to use the bathroom, and so it's like, all right, time to come to bed. Well, it feels bad if I'm in the middle of a BG's game and I'm like, I'll be done soonish. So I've been playing Roguebook, and I really like that game. It's very relaxing.
Yeah. A lot of good games out there. I am mostly playing Hearthstone ones. I hear there is a Hearthstone game mode coming soon that will be much easier to deal with in terms of time investment. We'll talk about that basically for this entire episode, so, keep your ears peeled for that. Actually, I think we're transitioning into the news section right now? Now.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So, Mercenaries. It's going to be the first topic of the news, and it's highlighted in purple, which means Hat has some words about it. So I'm just going to toss it right over to Hat, and we can get into all of the other things, news, before we go into tournaments, and then talk about Mercenaries more in Decksplanations.
Yes. It's going to be a lot of Mercenaries talk about this episode, different angles. And by the way, on the bonus episode that was published today, that we recorded on Tuesday, the day of the reveal, there was a lot of Mercs talk, a lot of Mercenaries talk. That was kind of our initial reaction. And I think if you look back at Tuesday, a lot of the community reaction, keep in mind, the overall, to give the shortest version possible, I think the general community understanding is that the sales pitch was not effective at selling the new mode and was very effective at sending the message that you should buy the new mode, and that's not a great combination. There were absolutely some people that got what they were going for with the presentation and with the game modes, one of whom is on this very show, and she will tell us all about this in the Decksplanations section. So if you were excited about it and didn't resonate with all the criticism levied at the density and confusion around the presentation, don't feel a need to justify that. Like, I'm glad that some people really got a lot out of it. But there was a lot of high-profile feedback about this was a meeting that you give other game designers inside Blizzard to talk about this game, not a presentation that you give to make people want to buy your game. And even then, they asked us very clearly to buy the game, which econ is something that Hearthstone players are generally pretty sensitive towards. And if you want to convince someone that something is good for them, you have to make it very clear how it is, and make it very clear that it is not coming for your gold or your money, and that, I think, was missed. I think that's fair to say, right? I think that's fair to say. I wrote an article over at PC Gamer. It is pretty direct in how I think they missed the ball on the structure of the sales pitch. I will say the editor came up with the title. It's a pretty aggro title. The title is Blizzard just gave a masterclass in how to not sell a game. I don't think the sentiment is wrong, but the title's pretty strong. Gotta get the clicks. But I stand by what I said in the article. I will say my issue, personally, is how the sales pitch soured discourse around the game for a couple days, but I want to also be clear, since the announcement, I have watched a Mercenaries gameplay video every day, and I am very excited to play it. I want to play it. But the way that it was marketed and sold up front made talking about the game worse for a little while, and I think that is something that can be fixed, but the damage was done, and the initial impression of the mode, which I really wanted to be excited about unequivocally, was dampened. So, there are ways for them to fix it. I'm excited to play it. I am going to play it. We'll talk about it extensively. But the initial presentation wasn't effective. So I have more here, but quick reflection, anything to add from anyone?
There were some small number of us who got it and were excited right away. I guess I speak for you. We do exist.
Yes.
I'm sure you probably all also really love complicated board games.
I linked you, I think, that Auntie Donna video of the board game night thing, which is hilarious. Amazing sketch.
So good.
Yeah.
And I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I forgot about the reveal and really have no interest in the game mode, and probably won't until until it comes out and other people are pestering me to play it. Most likely.
Yeah. So, and keep in mind as well, Deck Tech, our friend who works at Blizzard on the community team, who wrote the blog articles, which I think did a good job of at least explaining what was going on in digestible chunks, as opposed to trying to eat Thanksgiving dinner in one bite by unhinging your jaw, which was the showcase was trying to do. That they have heard the feedback as well. They were already planning on revealing more content, but they're also adapting those plans, and also Trump SC and Regis Kilbin both put together really great fan videos on exactly what's going on here. I strongly recommend, if you only have time for one, Trump SC's video is 50 minutes long and really does a good job of explaining how the mode is accessible yet complex. And there's a lot of stuff buried on the website about the odds of things that you're going to open in packs. It has the mode has duplicate protection. There are 8 free mercenaries you get just from completing the tutorial. The PvE will give you stuff, but also seems to be mostly playable for free. It's the fears around the collection will probably not be justified. The issue with Blizzard's presentation is that they didn't do enough to quell those fears up front, and instead made them worse by asking for money to play Diablo and Hearthstone halfway through the presentation. And playing as Diablo is cool, but it looked, shoehorned in. All right, so that's fixable, and I do want to play with Diablo, and he looks rad. And the diamond art with the class card color kind of poking out is actually so good that it makes me want that style for the rest of Hearthstone, because I think it looks better than the current diamond and gold animation. But just be aware, they have heard the feedback. So, in addition to that, Iksar had some tidbits that were talked about today. There is... so, currently they're planning on PvP to award the same experience as constructed ranked PvP. It's a rewards track experience. And for PvE to award the same amount of experience as Arena, BGs, and Duels. So, the solo content will give you as much XP as currently playing Arena, Battlegrounds, and Duels will. That's quite a bit. So... keep that in mind. Also, we know that Mercs will have its own rewards and quest-like system in addition to what will currently exist, and there are Merc-specific rewards for playing Mercs. This isn't something that you're going to constantly have to invest money in. It's going to be like the other modes in Hearthstone. So, wait and see, but these tidbits are leaking out slowly but surely. And by the way, by far the best thing to happen about Mercenaries was in the Concede Discord today. Discord member Foxhound974 suggested that since each mercenary gets their own currency, that you should name each currency after a real-world currency. The conversation quickly escalated. Some of my favorites: Bru'Coins, Keltha Zlotys, Lyra Sunshards, Kurtrus Ashfall Yen, and by far my favorite, Sour Franks. So please be aware, the Concede Discord is the best place in the universe. There are so many more options, but there are a lot of currencies out there and a lot of names to find. All right. So, we also had a giant patch, 21.2. Botticus, take it away.
All right. So 21.2 came out. We had some more nerfs to the Warlock deck. Flesh Giants up to 10 mana. Stealer of Secrets up to a 6 mana 4/6. I guess we can stop there. Have either of you seen a Stealer or a Flesh Giant since the patch? I have seen a Flesh Giant. I have not seen a Stealer of Secrets.
I've seen many Flesh Giants and 0 Stealers. Yeah. And I have played with Flesh Giants. They are slower. I do notice it. But also, they cost 0 still quite a bit. But they don't cost 0 until, like, turn 7-ish, as opposed to 5 or 6. And that's better. Handlock's still...
That's a lot better.
Handlock's still good. Handlock's still a very good deck. And I did on turn 6 in my THL match this week, I did get double Flesh Gianted on turn 6 for 0, but my opponent had double Raised Dead and Spice Bread Baker. So, they had Raised Bread Huh? Huh? Yeah, so Baker into Raised Dead Baker, Giant was strong. It was good. I think they did some other stuff, I don't remember. But for the most part, having played with and against the deck, Giant is absolutely slower. Haven't played much Wild. We'll talk about Wild later too. It's they still cost 0 in Wild. Adjust your expectations.
I don't even know where to go from there. Book of Mercenaries. Tasman is out.
Tamsin.
So I am super... Tamsin. What did I say?
Tasman.
You said Tasman.
Tasman.
Like Jasmine, but Tasman.
Anyway, I am way far behind on these. I suppose I'm assuming that neither of you have had the opportunity to complete this one yet.
Yes.
Look, I'm
complete.
real far behind.
Yeah. I haven't had the opportunity to begin it or end it. I'm sure it's cool.
Yeah, so I mean they've been doing a killer job with these, so hopefully one day I'll get around to completing some of these, because with all these you get a nice pack. So always good to complete these if you're looking to get more cards. An update to duels, Meek Mastery. I think I said this before the show, but Meek Mastery was a fairly broken treasure that you could get that reduced the cost of all of your neutral minions by 1 and gave them +1/+1. And yeah, this was super busted. I played against this one quite a bit, and yeah, you can do some pretty crazy stuff early that makes pretty unkillable boards. So
Botticus, we have an
glad to see
update.
this get moved.
We have an update from chat, by the way. Mad-at-Arms, resident Warlock expert, indicated that Tamsin is not out until Tuesday, so no one has completed it yet.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so Meek Mastery in Pool 2 makes a lot of sense, just because it's very strong, and also still strong in Pool 2, by the way. Don't be afraid to still pick this up in Pool 2, because honestly, if you look at a lot of the pre-made decks, there's a website that tracks a bunch of 12-win starting decks. A lot of them contain neutral minions with battle cries, because one of the main strategies of duels is to play battle cry minions and get battle cry treasures, and that is generally very successful. So, and it just so happens a lot of the battle cries you get are also neutral, so making them cost 1 less means you play them earlier. So yeah, Meek Mastery, good change. Happy to see that. There was also the main menu update, which I believe we talked about very briefly on the bonus episode, where it now says Hearthstone as the top little section, and then you have Battlegrounds, and then Mercenaries is grayed out until, well, not grayed out, but it's like already pressed in, so you can't click it until it comes out in the middle of October. And then the last one is modes, and modes will contain your single player content, your duels content, your arena content, and what's the last one?
Solo Tavern Brawl.
Oh, and Tavern Brawl. So
yeah,
if you're looking to, if you're wondering where some of that stuff got moved around, check the modes tab, because right now there are 2 primary modes that they're making sure they advertise on the quote-unquote front page of Hearthstone are regular Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. And of course, in regular Hearthstone, you can choose, standard, wild, and classic, and casual.
Traditional Hearthstone is what they call it on the quest, and it looks so
traditional.
weird to see win 5 traditional ranked Hearthstone games.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to say that I don't get it. I'm going to say it's weird.
Yep. There's a bug with the friends list that supposedly was fixed. Have either of you noticed this? Which bug specifically are they talking about with the friends list? Because
the one where you had to open Hearthstone 30 minutes before any qualifier or THL match because otherwise your friends wouldn't load in time. That's been fixed. There is a new change where if you don't click enable chat by clicking on someone's name when you launch the client, you don't see any messages at all unless you're in the BNet client. Chat messages don't come through. However,
auto squelch. You mean auto squelch, but it's only your friends instead of the people you actually want to auto squelch? Yeah, I think I saw a brief mention of that
Kinda.
somewhere.
But the friends list no longer takes forever to load. It's much easier to get everyone loaded up so you can challenge them. Because before, you would have to log in 30 minutes before, and there was this whole song and dance. Now, it's still... You can't... I believe that you have to accept friend requests still in the BNet client. I don't believe that accepting or sending still works in the Hearthstone client. Something's up with that. But the BNet client works fine. But the loading of the friends list is fixed. I can definitely confirm that. So, if you don't have the Battle.net app on your phone, definitely add it on your phone because you can chat through there and add friends through there, and it does work. And you can also change your status on mobile. So if you want to go to appear offline or you're sneaking a game at work, whoever that could be, definitely not me, you can do that with the Battle.net app. Yeah, there are a couple bugs that were fixed and a new one that was found that's pretty funny. So, Counterfeit Blade had a bug where it would just pick up a death rattle from your deck from any zone change. So in Wild, people were playing Mechathune, and you would either mill it, transform it with Savory Deviant Delight, or Secret Passage it, and then you would play your Counterfeit Blade on 4, then you would Myra's Coin, Secret Passage, or whatever, and then break the blade, and then your opponent would die, because it had picked up the Mechathune death rattle. That's been patched. Also, Antonidas, not getting spell damage, has been patched. The new Antonidas. However, there's a new bug with Antonidas. If you play it and your opponent is stealthed, you target your own face, which is unintended and hilarious. So don't play it against a stealthed opponent. Antonidas can't see it. They're stealthed. But he sees you, and you're not stealthed, and you look like you could use some fireballs, so he throws a few. Be aware of that. There's also a new, very interesting bug in Wild, where if you play any Cthulhu buff, original Whispers the Old Gods Cthulhu, any buffer, like the 2 Beckoner of Evil, the 2-mana 2/3, and then on turn 6 you play Maxima Blastenheimer, which pulls a minion out of your deck and attacks with it. If it pulls Cthulhu attacks for 128 damage. The buff just ticks up.
I saw this.
Somehow. I don't know how it works. Nobody really knows how it works. I could not even begin to explain to you, but a single Cthulhu buff, for some reason, is repeatedly applied, and it attacks your opponent for 128.
Yeah, I don't know if Clark Hellscream is the one that found this bug, but he is the one that I saw posted on Reddit, and was quite funny.
He's not the one that found it, but definitely one of the few that popularized it. I believe it was found by, I think Lovely Duke found it from the CN server. They seem to find everything. You just Cthulhu buff on 2, Maxima on 6, and your opponent dies. However, so obviously Hunter is the way. If you want to win the mirror match, you throw in a freezing trap or maybe a wandering monster. You can throw those in there. Ice block works, bulwark works. If your opponent plays Maxima and pulls the wrong minion, if you have 2 of those Beckoners and pulls the other one, you're in trouble. It's not the most consistent combo in the world.
Sounds like Naga Sea Witch all over again, where like everybody was playing Naga Sea Witch, and then all of the cards that would counter the opponent's Naga Sea Witch combo.
Yeah, Naga Sea Witch was actually good. I should clarify. This is not good. I don't want to give the impression this deck is good, but it's a bug, and it's very silly, and sometimes they'll play it and you will just die out of nowhere, and it's unintended. And I am surprised that it's still active right now. I assume it'll be hotfixed before the end of the weekend, if it's not like during the show. So yeah, those are going on. But also, this patch brought us some new stuff. Take it away, bot.
All right. So Battlegrounds is no longer in beta. Battlegrounds has been officially released. And oh boy, did they make an overhaul of a lot of stuff. So they added a Battlegrounds specific keyword, Avenge, and Avenge will have a number tied to it, and then after that number of minions die, you will get an Avenge trigger. It can be a whole bunch of different stuff, including adding cards to your hand, buffing minions on the board, all kinds of different abilities. And so far, from what I've seen, has been quite good in a lot of cases, especially in ones where you're able to make tokens and stuff. Obviously, it gets more powerful, but it's been a lot of fun to play with. The length of turns 3 through 9 have been increased by 5 seconds, so you have a bit more time to think and complete your actions, which I think is nice. And they might even change the length of turns again sometime in the future. I haven't really noticed it that much. I don't know if either of you have, but I think a little bit more time on a lot of turns doesn't bug me a whole lot. Generally, turns 1 and 2, I don't need a lot of time, but lots of decisions to be made past that.
And Alex said this is because there are so many new minions to read. So this is temporary. It's not going to be something that is constantly in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out, with all the hero skins now, trying to figure out what hero I'm actually playing against can be difficult sometimes. So in addition to all the new minions and decisions, I think it's warranted. The Dark Moon prizes, unfortunately, have been disabled again. I think they don't want to add that confusion 1 out of every 4 games to have the Dark Moon prizes on top. I'm sure they could come back in the future, because I did like having them show up every once in a while. Everybody's rating was reset to 0 for the new season. And interestingly, we have a new damage cap. So until the first player dies, you can no longer take more than 15 damage. And
I think that's a great
like a little
change.
shield.
Yeah.
And essentially what it kind of prevents is somebody who maybe doesn't have the best start goes up against somebody who has a crazy start and maybe gets a tier 6 minion that pops out more tier 6 minions or something, and you just would end up, taking lethal damage randomly because you're still trying to catch up. And I think this just helps that. It honestly happens extremely rarely that you would take more than 15 damage. So it just kind of prevents the 1 out of every 30, 40 games that you would take 15 damage before somebody else has died. Now, after one person has died, that all bets are off. You can take tons of damage from any source, but yeah, you can rest assured that if your opponent high rolls a couple lucky attacks and maybe pops out a few extra minions, you're not going to take more than 15 damage until one person has died.
Yeah, I really like
this.
It does
not count if somebody disconnects. If somebody disconnects,
I
they
think
do
all
not
bets are
count
off, right?
as...
Oh, they do.
No. If someone concedes, disconnects, or dies during recruit phase, the damage cap will still be present for that combat.
Oh.
If it's the first person. All right. Players with Battlegrounds perks are more likely to be offered new heroes during the 2-week early access period following the initial announcement. In every lobby during the 2-week access period, the option to play with new heroes will be distributed at random between players with Battlegrounds perks. No player will be offered more than one new hero. And then there's the minion changes. And oh boy, are there a ton of minions. We unfortunately do not have time to go over all of those. I'm going to be pushing for our bonus episode this month to be about Battlegrounds once we've all gotten a bit of a better handle on it. And we can maybe cover some of these new minions in there initially. But I think we should at least talk about one minion potentially that has impressed us from the new pool. I already have mine picked out, so I will let you two kind of think of a minion that has been performing really well for you or that you've just really enjoyed playing. For me, it is the Quillbore Gem Splitter. Holy cow. So it's just after any friendly minion loses Divine Shield, you gain a blood gem. And let me tell you, early, if you are picking up any of the minions that have Divine Shield, which there are a decent amount of now, this gets out of control pretty quickly. And I've had a couple games where I was getting like 8 blood gems every turn, and it just kind of can get out of hand pretty easily. It's also just a lot of fun. I like when stuff gets added to my hand and I have more decisions to make, even though it takes me forever to make decisions because everything's new. But I'm interested if either of you also have a minion that has really impressed you.
Go ahead, Edelweiss.
Oh, honestly, that same unit had really impressed me very early on. I kind of very frequently take the pup bot on one just because it's a good unit, and also because the Divine Shield synergies have just like increased pretty substantially, and getting on 3, as soon as you get to 3 stars, that guy is whew, that's nice with some pup bots, or the Bronze Warden is kind of insane.
Oh, Bronze Warden's a good unit. That's weird.
Yeah. What's new? But
also,
yeah,
the best
so-
reason to take pup bot. Who's a good bot? Who's a good bot? You are. It looks like B, like Cora's puppy. I like it.
Yep, it really does. It really does. But yeah, if I'm choosing a separate one, I would say Peggy in the Pirates tribe. She's the one that gives another pirate +1/+1 anytime you add a card to your hand. So sometimes you can get like a little bit of blood gems going. I had a golden version of the one that adds a coin to your hand. So you get 2 coins to your hand at the end of every turn as long as you have a pirate. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Peggy Pirates is really, really fun. That was my pick for most fun unit that I've enjoyed playing. The dog, actually, his video from yesterday was Golden Flat Tusk Double Golden Peggy, and that got out of hand very quickly. I don't know how many people have the APN to pull off. He was talking about how difficult it was, and this is dog we're talking about here. Strongly recommend checking that out, Boticus. You should go watch that video. It's great. But I really enjoy Peggy Pirates. Had a Peggy Pirates game relatively recently. That is the most fun new minion. The most effective new minion that is also kind of bullspit, because we're a family show. The Pyrosworn, the dragon that shoots fireballs before you hit, that card's ridiculous. That card's completely stupidly absurd, right? Like, really, really busted. It completely invalidates Divine Shields. I was playing a Dragon Mirror match. My opponent had Nadina, and I had Pyrosworn, and I won, and it was not close. Because Divine Shields don't matter anymore. And also, if the minion attacks, and then the thing that you're attacking dies, the minion doesn't hit. It just survives. It just goes back. It's incredibly powerful. I cannot believe it is a whenever this attacks, as opposed to an after this attacks. It seems really, really, really good, and losing to it feels like a soul juggler that never misses every time your opponent attacks. And the minion doesn't even have to die to trigger it. It's really good. It's really good.
I've seen it be good. I don't know that I've seen it be as broken as you said, but it's definitely been good. I also
powerful.
just want to point out the consume mechanic from Demons.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love the consume mechanic.
Yeah.
I don't know how to maximize it fully yet, but I definitely had a game where my last gold would always be spent to reroll the shop because I had 6 demons and a famished fellbat that would just, all my demons would just eat everything in the shop.
Listen,
it was cool.
It's the summertime. Do not forget to freeze first. Demons like frozen treats. You gotta freeze first to make sure. They'll remember.
But anyway, we will we'll talk a lot more about Battlegrounds hopefully in a bonus episode pretty soon. Do we have any other feelings about Battlegrounds? I think it was a super successful. I was honestly fairly confident that they would be able to make the mode feel really refreshed, and I think they just kind of killed it. with it. I'm looking forward to playing the mode a lot more because there's just a lot more to learn from it now.
Yeah, it's they're gonna balance some stuff, and I will say Team 5 definitely swung for the fences here. But there are some interactions that are pretty insane. There's some stuff going on with Macaw and either Leapfrogger or the demon that shares health. I saw Macaw Rivendare. It's like the demon when it dies. I think it's give this unit's health to another minion. It's the opposite of Fiendish Servant. I saw a video with Rivendare, Golden Macaw, and that where there were like multiple 2,000 health minions by the end of it. And that's because it keeps doubling, right? Like it does it twice. And so, geometric scaling in Battleground seems a little spooky, and there's a bunch of that going on right now. And also, Leapfrogger can have so many animations that it was crashing the game, which is why they temporarily disabled it and re-enabled it. Because, also the Rivendare Leapfrogger thing, super duper fun. When it gets going, it feels insane. It feels like way out of bounds. So I don't know if there's going to be a limit to that or what they're going to do, but it looks very, very enjoyable to play. But once it gets going, you can't really beat it all that effectively. And beasts have an awful lot of reborn these days. Yeah.
True. Yep. Because now you can just give beasts reborn.
Yeah, they're just a beast that just does that.
There's just a minion that does that. Yep. Yeah, so there were a few hotfixes and bugs. The Razor Gore plus Whelp we talked about a little bit. It got fixed. Cthulhu got disabled, re-enabled. Leapfrogger disabled, re-enabled. Deathwing disabled and re-enabled. What was going on with Deathwing Hat?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, some bug. So also to follow up, Stromwind Mystery is here. There's this insane looking card back that looks amazing. That it says solve the mysteries of Stormwind, and it already has been solved, but unfortunately it was solved in a bit of a sad way. What happened here?
So unfortunately, the game's log file was leaking all the variables that were affecting how the puzzle worked. So the NGA forums scraped the logs, figured out what variable was being called, and brute forced it that way. So it was unintended. I feel really bad for Celestalon, but it was a really clever and cool puzzle. And I was in the Hearthstone Secret Finding Discord watching people try and work through it. It was pretty involved. But unfortunately, this one, some extra information got into the logs that wasn't supposed to be there, and people were able to figure it out without having to figure it out.
That feels so sad to me.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
But on the bright news, if you want to get this card back, because it does look really sweet, it has been solved, so you can go get the card back at least, because it's a really cool looking one. What are we talking about here with Wild Balance?
Oh boy,
what's going on here?
A lot. So if you thought the Mercenaries discourse was bad, oh boy. So Wild. Wild Twitter is generally a controversial place. There are a lot of conflicting opinions about what the format should be. Not a lot of consensus. And that's when it's going well, and Wild is not going well right now. It is unbalanced. It is a poor play experience. And the initial nerfs, including Flesh Giant and Sealer, which is not legal in Wild, obviously did not feel like very much. Now, Alec had tweeted that there were more changes coming in later September, that they're going to evaluate. There was an assumption, I think, from most people that would not include Wild nerfs. It turns out that it will. We have that information from Alec. But after the Flesh Giant 1-mana nerf went live, Wild players were like, I'm just going to quit the format until they make substantial changes. It was unclear if changes were coming. And then some standard players decided to wade in. And in particular, there was a tweet that was referencing an article from the launch of Wild 5 years ago, indicating that Wild would get crazier over time, and that this is what Wild players were signing up for. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but it didn't go super well. It wasn't all that enjoyable. And it just got kind of petty from both sides. So, Alec has made it clear. His tweet here. Next full patch was created specifically for balance changes, talking about many things like nerfs and buffs. The approach to Wild is to act in extreme cases. The current case is probably clearing that bar. In addition, Dean has tweeted that he played Galakron Shaman to Legend last season. He'll probably do the same this season. Opinion on the current meta is that the population of Warlock is too high, limits the range of experiences that he could be having. In terms of what the deck does, we wouldn't consider it out of line, but it is too consistently powerful. Haven't talked direct changes with Alec yet, other than we should figure out something. And there's discussion about Crystallizer that Gallon brought up, which is a good change because that card is silly. It is not if that is the only change they make, it will not stop the Demon Seed from being busted in Wild. They need to make more than one change. However, they have made it clear that they are looking at it, but the discourse around Wild, from both Wild players and Standard players, was very poor yesterday. There were some Wild players that are like, hey, don't come into our format and disrespect us. There were some Standard formats that are like, hey, chill on the rhetoric, because Wild keeps blowing up on Twitter. And overall, it was just a kind of a poor look for most involved. It was somewhat dramatic. Not really all that worth engaging with, in my opinion. I did not. In fact, I tweeted, because the new Super Follows feature came out, which is you can pay to see some special tweets. I said that if you super follow me, I promise not to tweet about Wild Balance. No Super Follows yet, but I'll keep you all updated. But yes. So, short version. Wild players mad about Demon Seed. Blizzard knows. Gonna fix it. Twitter drama. Don't bother engaging with it. Finn.
Yep. And in addition to all of this news, we also had an Iksar AMA. And honestly, we kind of have so much going on with, the Mercenaries reveal, I guess all this drama happening, the new Battleground stuff that came out. I think we're just going to suggest that everybody go take a look. We have a link in the show notes that will be posted with the episode, where you all can go check it out, because there's a lot of great information in here, and Out of Cards just does a really great job of summarizing everything and making sure the relevant information's in there for you if you don't want to read through a ton of Twitter threads. So go check it out this week. We're not going to cover it super in depth. And then lastly, for the news, we have kind of some information about the newest hero to the Hearthstone Battlegrounds, which is Master Nguyen, and the story behind him, the Pandaren, who is apparently quite good in BGs, by the way.
Super fun too. Really, really fun.
I have to try him out.
Yeah, you see 2 hero powers every turn, and you pick one, and it changes every turn. Really, really fun. Every time you see him, you should take him.
Yeah, isn't he number 1 actually right now? Like win rate wise?
Possibly. That sounds plausible, but I haven't looked. He's a good hero.
I assume you can get like Shutterwalk or whatever.
Yep.
Like Shutterwalk's probably pretty busted to get.
There are a lot of good ones. You can get George for a turn. You can get Lich King for a turn. You can get Omu for a turn, which is very good. You can get Mutinous for a turn. A Cthulhu for a turn, not very good. You don't want that
What
one.
happens if you get someone like, who was I thinking of? Like Flight Master. I assume it's not.
Galewing?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
I think there's a curated pool of
I'd guess so,
hero
yeah.
powers that you can actually get, which honestly makes it slightly better, because then you don't end up with the super dead hero powers. Like, there's some less great ones, but I think they may have taken out the hero powers that were just kind of not functioning.
I would guess if you get Millhouse for a turn, it's stupid busted. It's
very good, yes. And Millhouse already has a lot of buffs, given that the refreshing elemental with Millhouse is insane. It's so ridiculous.
Oh man, that one's so much fun to play too.
Yeah, it's really good. I just looked
definitely try it out.
the number one is indeed Master Nguyen. He is truly Master Nguyen because he wins 18.5% of his lobbies. Yeah, top 3: Master Nguyen, Master Nguyen, Cthulhu, and Daryl. Daryl Mechs, tier 1. What a world.
Mechs are really good.
Edwin's
now
good
you can
again, too. Edwin's super good again.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Edel?
Oh, like you can dance on Puppbot, so you have a perfect minion from the start with Divine Shield. So if you just have like some tokens and mechs, you're good to go as Daryl.
Yep. And yeah, just so everybody know, kind of the concept art for Master Nguyen is a tribute to one of the first members of the Hearthstone team, Dan Nguyen, who has sadly passed away. But the artwork is pretty stunning. And it was drawn by Ben Thompson, who was the former lead artist of the Hearthstone team. And yeah, it's just kind of a incredible piece of art. And there's a quote from Ben Thompson in there regarding the art piece.
Yeah,
if you want to take a look at it.
Total field trip, like bittersweet, devastating read, but you can tell there was a lot of love for Dan on the team. And it's the only piece that Ben Thompson has drawn for Hearthstone since leaving the Hearthstone team. But it is there's a lot of references to Dan himself in the art, and it's just really nice that they were able to put together this wonderful tribute to him. All right. Shall we talk about tournaments? Because there was a tournament. Let's go.
It's the Grand Tournament!
Masters Tour Silvermoon. This was a fun event to watch. There was a lot going on here. The games are pretty snappy in this meta, but there are some very complex decks that we got to see piloted on camera. Some high-level players that really performed very well. Some high-level players that maybe got baited by Brute Demon Hunter. But Brute Demon Hunter still ended up winning the event. Zhu Shanyu won over A-Rock. Another Masters Tour win for China. A-Rock's second finals appearance in Masters Tours in the past year. So, great player. 2 silver medals. Had some really unlikely wins to get there, honestly. Very, very narrow windows for success. Got there, but wasn't able to close out the final match. Judgment and Lee were in the top 4. Really significant China representation in the top 16. As far as what was good, Masters Tour Face Hunter was the best deck. It was quite strong. But that was just because of the meta overall. This was a target mage meta. Targeting mage was a very successful strategy. Mage was banned a ton and targeted if you weren't banning it, so Face Hunter had the highest win rate. Libram Paladin also was way up there. Libram Paladin very good against like the Quest Shaman and Handlock. It's actually quite okay. It's decent there. Control Priest did pretty well for similar reasons. Miracle Rogue with Garrotes. That was where this deck really picked up, and it's been all over ladder since. And Brute Demon Hunter had its coming out parties a few days before, and ended up being quite good because handlocks do not like getting glided. So, if you want to beat handlocks, you have glide in the left. That's how to do it. Quest Shaman was very strong. Quest Shaman and Handlock were the most banned decks, with Mage third. Mage did very poorly overall, but it was, again, either ban it or target it. Those are your options. And the recap, there's a recap on YouTube. There's a top 5 moments on YouTube. There's a whole lot of stuff. Some great content on YouTube. And this was a really enjoyable Masters Tour to watch. Edel, did you get to catch any?
I didn't really, unfortunately, but I'm going to have to go back and watch some of them.
Yeah. There were some great matches. Really, anytime SN Brox play, it was totally worth it. I believe SN Brox played against Eddie, and that was a really great match. And the finals was a clincher. Like, it was super duper close. Also, shout out to Orange. He got 8-0 on the first day. Got knocked out in the round of 16. But his play the first day was really, really incredible, and the way that he played Miracle Garrote Rogue really spoke to me. So I strongly recommend checking out Orange's games on day one as well. Really put up a great performance. But also, we've got some news from some of the Grandmasters. There were no Grandmasters matches last week because of the Masters Tour, no qualifiers, but we heard from Muzzy and Eddie that they will not be returning to Grandmasters after this season. That Muzzy just said that he's been playing too long. He's been in the game for 8 years, but it's time that he moved on. Yet some young blood have shots at their dreams. And Eddie posted a twit longer, as is the style of Grandmasters, that really since early this year, he hasn't really felt the desire or the motivation to play. And, he feels lucky about having played for so long, feels like it's been, such an important part of his life. But he hasn't felt like continuing, and it's time for him to move on. So he's stepping down out of the way as well and letting some more people step up. And I'm proud of both of these gentlemen for figuring out that it was time for them to move away from the game. But it is going to be sad to see them both go. Muzzy and Eddie have both been competitors for as long as I can remember, and they're both really, really incredible players when they're focused, and they've stayed focused for a long, long time. Thoughts? Feelings?
I mean, it's like hard to think of, the World Championship without Muzzy. He was there so many times.
Yeah. Just we're really seeing the beginning of a new wave of players really picking up Hearthstone, and it's been fun to watch, your Egos and your Banner Faces and your Kayla's Lunas be great representation of the game in the Americas region, and you see some APAC players like Gur has been really fun to watch that I just hadn't even heard of before. But also you see some of these old-timers that are just running out of their time with the game. Happens. Glad they're recognizing it. And that's going to do it for the tournament series. And Edelweiss has a journey for us to take. Are you ready?
Indeed. Yeah, ready as I'll ever be.
Let's go.
So I was definitely in the minority here, but when I watched the presentation they gave, I honestly got really excited for Mercenaries, and then it made me really sad when people did not feel the same way. They did not get the same out of the video, which admittedly, I play a lot of complicated board games. I absorb these things in probably a different way, but I wanted to try and share with everyone so that people can maybe feel better about Mercenaries. And yeah, it's going to be mostly me talking unless Bot or Hat have questions.
I'll chime in. I'm going to chime in. There will be chiming.
Oh, I'm sure. No, you always do. I'm going to start with the lore. This is kind of classic RPG. I think you could say you play as a bounty hunter, but bounty hunter was a mouthful, so they went with Mercenaries. But I think the fact that we've got the whole tavern thing from Hearthstone, and then taverns like the Elf Song Tavern in D&D are often a place to post bounties. And the gameplay of Mercenaries is going after these targets and collecting bounties. So really like that kind of concept. But I'm going to sort of start with a very focused in thing on what I think people wanted to know more about, and then kind of zoom out a bit. So we're going to start with combat, because I think this is what people really expect to be the gameplay. I would make an argument that, honestly, the hub and doing stuff in the hub is also part of the gameplay. But I think for many people, they were like, the combat's the gameplay. What's the combat like? The combat is like team battle Pokemon, essentially. You have 3-on-3. Well, not necessarily on 3 in PvE, but if you were in PvP, it would be 3-on-3. But you have a roster of 6. So your other 3 are going to be on your bench. And one will go in when a character dies, or there will be some abilities where you can swap with your bench. But you have a few phases. The battles will take place over rounds, but it sort of goes at the very start of the battle, you place your units, and positioning may matter a little bit, but it's going to be dependent on ability. And once you've placed your units, you have a command phase or main phase where you choose the abilities that you want to use for each of your mercenaries. And they will resolve in the, I guess they call it the combat phase. And it's really just resolution after you've input all the moves, what actually happens. You go from lowest speed to highest. So when selecting the attacks or abilities you want to use, you want to account for the speed in terms of the order your character's abilities will take place.
I think, by the way, this is the most important mechanic in all of Mercenaries. The speed mechanic, the way that I've started to think about it after watching a lot of gameplay footage, and like especially Trump SC's video, this is Battlegrounds, except you're not ever going to face shop variants, and your job is to dictate the order that your minions attack, or the order that combat goes in general. And so this is the mode of Hearthstone with the least RNG ever. You bring your own mercs, you choose your abilities, most of the time you choose the target, and the lower speed always goes, and there are a lot of abilities that impact speed. We've seen some where the rogue, when they cast Fan of Knives, they reduce the speed of all of their team's abilities for the next turn. There are some abilities that freeze, that slow down the opposing mercenaries. It very much seems like a game where it's about positioning and choice, and the speed of abilities is how you can make an informed decision about how is this combat going to play out. And it becomes a game where does it make more sense to go for a slower ability that's bigger because I know what my opponent's going to do? Or do I go for a faster ability because I want it to happen first? How do I sequence my abilities so they synergize? It seems like there's a surprising amount of depth here, even though the gameplay is fairly simple, which is something we've seen before with Battlegrounds. Because remember, people called it Mass Hysteria Simulator. You know, it's Battlegrounds is really, really deep, even though people said at first that it wasn't. And also, remember that the game Hearthstone was called a Magic knockoff that was way less technically complex. That also turned out to not really be true. There's plenty of depth here.
Yeah, and honestly, there's several ways to get synergies. I call this section the combat details or team building section, and it's really, I think similar to Darkest Dungeon or Pokemon, a little bit of Fire Emblem, and that little bit is the roles. So they showed us 3 roles, fighters, casters, and protectors, each corresponding with a color. Fighters are green, casters are blue, and protectors are red. And these form what I call like the Fire Emblem weapon trinity. Fire Emblem had like swords beat axes, axes beat lances, lances beat swords. It's just a rock, paper, scissors system, and it allows you to apply double damage if you are attacking. So if you are on the offensive in an interaction between 2 minions. So when you attack something, if it also has attack, you take retaliation damage. And these are kind of the 2 types of attacks, I suppose. Like, they're all abilities, but if they specifically say attack, then there'll be damage back and forth.
That's
So
like a
on
BG
defense,
attack. It's a keyword where it's like it says attack, it's bolded. When it's attack, it's like a BG attack. There are then also targeted things. But anything that says the word attack is these 2 bump just like in BGs, and they deal damage to each other.
Right. So if you are attacking a fighter into a caster, you will deal double damage. But if you are attacking a protector with your fighter, because you're on the offensive, like, you don't get the double damage or sorry, they don't get the double damage for you making an attack with the thing that it's strong against. But speed, and this is very important, ties are decided randomly. So it's gonna be risky if like you have two characters with an ability that's the same speed and you really need one to happen first. You know, you would be kind of coin flipping it. And I believe it's just like randomly amongst everything that has the same speed. So if you and your opponent queue up abilities of the same speed, it's going to be decided randomly. I expect that will lead to people needing to have a lot of knowledge of all the characters generally and what the speeds are for their moves so that you can try and make sure your stuff goes off first. Bit of memorization in the super competitive side of this.
We also don't know if we get to see the equipment loadout on the other mercenaries, because equipment that you can give to each character changes how they operate. I assume that we'll be able to see what their abilities are. Like, we can mouse over and see what the abilities are, but not what they've chosen in PvP. In the PvE, I know that you get to see what's going on. It's kind of like the intent system in Slay the Spire, where you can see what they're planning on doing. In PvP, we don't know for sure. I would assume you get to see what their characters can do and what they have equipped, but not what they've chosen. So it's going to be this guessing game, and I would assume the meta here, like you said in PvP, will probably involve a lot of knowledge, a very deep amount of knowledge.
Like a League of Legends amount of knowledge, I would say.
Yeah, something like that.
MOBAs in general. MOBAs have a lot of memorization for like builds and then all the enemy champion abilities. But a last thing in terms of combat details and resolution, if a unit dies before its own ability resolves, then that ability fizzles. It does not happen because the character died. But if a unit dies before an ability targeting it would resolve, a new target is chosen. Basically, if you have two things attack one enemy and the first thing kills it, the second one will happen with a random target, enemy target.
So this is not like, I was thinking kind of like an old school Final Fantasy turn-based game where like you just queue up the actions all at once, everything happens, and then if what you wanted to hit wasn't there anymore, then you just didn't hit anything. But it sounds like this will save the action and put it somewhere else?
Yep, pretty much.
Cool.
And that brings us to the team building section. So when you're building a team, that's sort of like building your deck. You know, there's going to be kind of customizations within each thing in terms of your mercenaries can have different equipment that makes them play differently. And I don't know if they'll do this or not, but there could be different abilities you could have equipped. I could imagine that being a thing down the line. For now, it seems like they're just going to have 3 abilities and maybe one more in PvE from something.
If you equip an equipment, then that can give an ability sometimes. That'll be the 4th one.
Okay, you can take a sort of all-rounder approach in terms of having an even distribution of protectors, casters, fighters, so that you will always have someone that can deal double damage, but then at the same time you're always also going to have someone that can deal double damage to you. So maybe you can do the hate comp where you're like, you know, I'm getting wrecked by these protectors, I'm just going to build a team of casters and we're going to get them. There's, you know, lots of ways you can work with the trinities, but I expect what will be most of the interest in terms of building a team is going to be tactical synergies, such as, you know, you have a character that attacks, so you'll use Xyrella to reduce the attack of the enemy you're going to hit so that you don't take any retaliation damage. There will be tactical stuff like that, but there will also be spell school synergies. So things will have fire combo or arcane combo, or perhaps just, you know, does an extra thing if the enemy is frozen. Those are all sort of spell school synergies that you can build upon. And it won't necessarily be like all casters for the spell school synergies. I'm pretty sure Diablo has like a fire ability, so you could have Diablo in your fire team and like have Diablo's fire ability go off, and then your fire combo thing, stuff like that.
So, have you played Fire Emblem Three Hero or Fire Emblem not Three Heroes, Fire Emblem Heroes? Have you played that one? Yeah.
I did. I had to uninstall it because it was
bad.
I was spending too much time.
Yes. And then Darkest Dungeon as well. I know you've played a lot of Darkest Dungeon. How repetitive does this combat get? Because we've seen very little footage. The initial pre-release footage is low fanfare, high repetition. We've only seen like a PvE battle go through. What's your experience been with these other games? Like, how much depth is there here that we can expect?
Yeah, I would say that like if you have played Pokemon, I think this is more advanced than Pokemon for sure. The synergies can get really deep though. So I consider the gameplay as a whole. I don't think it's going to be too repetitive as long as high enough damage is being dealt, you know? If you figure people are optimizing their teams, I would think combat would be maybe like 5 rounds. And with certain abilities that you can only use on a cooldown, you know, maybe you only get to use that ability twice in a combat. I feel like there could be some serious depth, and you'll be engaged enough that it won't feel just like, oh, this is really repetitive. But it may take time to get to that state, because I do believe that the characters start with only one ability each. So the early PvE content may feel a little grindy. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I've seen some initial feedback of this looks boring, and that seems like the feedback that was given about Battlegrounds to people that hadn't played it yet. So I'm not sure if Mercs is gonna be the mode with a lot of depth, but I feel like it probably will have more than the demo B-roll footage has shown us so far.
I think so as well, in terms of speeds and when you kill a character, what character do they bring in. I think there will be plenty of depth to be had. But the last piece of synergy stuff is they have minion types as well as spell schools. So, you know, Diablo has a fire ability, but also Diablo is a demon. So you can get synergies on like demons, beasts. I don't know if we've been told any other specific tribes, but they did say there will be some tribes that are mercenaries specific. So they would be in mercenaries, but not other modes. And I wonder if that is because of the crossover stuff going on, that maybe they'll want to make Protoss their own thing.
I could see a Protoss situation. I don't know. I don't mind this being a Heroes of the Storm-esque thing, as long as it's not like, hey, you have to spend real money to get all this stuff. But we'll see how it goes. We don't want to mince words here. There is absolutely potential for this to be like a huge money sink, and also potential for it to be a pretty reasonable thing, and also possibility for it to be a pretty reasonable thing that still is a huge money sink, right? Like, because these sorts of games, much like in Constructed Hearthstone, if you just buy the $50 or the $80 pre-order every expansion, you can have the entirety standard set. If you want a golden deck, you're going to spend more. So, and in Mercenaries, I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunity to spend more if you want to, but also I don't know if you'll need to, but also some people have trouble telling the difference from want and need. So the question is, how hard is it to tell that difference, and how much does the game reward you for spending more? That's the big question. We don't know yet.
And also, it's a very like person-to-person thing how well you do with this kind of monetization in a game. I think when I was playing Fire Emblem Heroes, I I probably more money than I wanted to, but I think that was like the 40 to 60 range over the period of when I was playing it. What more bothered me about that experience was the time that I spent, that it felt like I woke up and like, well, I've got to get my hour or two of heroes in, like, to be able to maximize it. There's also a stamina system in a lot of mobile games, which this definitely does not have, because stamina systems are very toxic.
The survey that Botticus took, one of the key lines in that survey was play all day. It was a key indicator, a key line, which means there's no stamina system. Because you can't play all day if you have to pay $14.99 to play more, for example.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember that statement.
I wrote the article and I referenced the survey that you took, and it said play all day.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't remember that statement. So it was probably there. I just don't remember it.
I believe you. There are also, Edelweiss, there are questions coming in from chat. How do you balance this mode? Like, do you refund all the Merc bucks or something, or do you make them like a universal currency that you can spend on any Merc? Like, if you were refunding, how do you balance this mode? Because you invest so much more into characters.
That is a good point. I mean, I expect that, you know, they will in fact balance it if, you know, it's got issues going on. I don't think they want to have power level issues, but yeah, honestly, I don't know what the refund looks like, right? Since the coins are, they would have to, maybe they'll introduce like a wild card kind of coin or something.
Yeah. I wonder how that would work, and I wonder how they've worked through it. I'm sure we'll get more information on that. I also could see maybe balances just happens a different cadence, but like this team doesn't seem like they're interested in balancing slowly for premier game modes, and Mercenaries is on the front page already. They're going to have to make changes. So the question is, how do they do it without hitting people in the wallet? And that's a great question.
Yeah,
Chat,
honestly,
yeah. Chat, I'm
don't
glad
have
you
a
brought it
great
up, but we
answer
don't
to
know.
that.
Yeah.
But we've gotten a little off topic. Because there's still some other parts of the gameplay besides just the combat. We've got missions. And missions are where we kind of got our first preview. The thing where everyone was like, oh, they're making a Slay the Spire, because we assumed card game from Hearthstone, and the map looked like Slay the Spire. It very much is like Slay the Spire, this part. When you select a mission to go on a bounty, you will have a map with diverging paths. It's procedurally generated, which means that if you go on the same bounty, it'll be different the next time. It kind of helps reduce things feeling like a grind. And you will be able to have 3 types of encounters. There's fights, which is going to be the majority of the encounters. Some of them with a dragon frame are elites. You can always see where everything is question marks until you're going over it. You can always see where spirit healers are going to be on the map. And in Mercenaries, rather than having permanent damage from fight to fight the way that a game like Slay the Spire does, or Roguebook, in Mercenaries, damage is healed at the end of a fight, but any fallen mercenaries stay fallen. And a spirit healer will randomly revive one of your fallen mercenaries. The third kinds of encounters are, as you might expect from something like Slay the Spire, kind of story stuff happens. I mean, I don't know how much it will be really story. I'm curious what the writing is going to be like for that, but basically it's things that can, you know, buff your characters or some kind of rule change for the rest of the run. I'm really excited and curious to see how they flush these out and how much story we may get in terms of like the world of Mercenaries through this.
On the one hand, Matt London is a great writer and he's voicing all the mercenaries, like giving them voice. He's writing them all. On the other hand, how is Garrosh Hellscream going to be like, hey, that's Diablo? I don't know how you do that. So I'm curious.
Who knows? I mean, they can kind of do whatever they want. But zooming out a little further from, instead of just being on a mission, you've got the bounty board, which is where you select the mission that you're going to go on. So you think of the mission as the map. The bounty board is just like, you've gone into the tavern and here's the bounties, here's the wanted people, and yeah, you'll be able to see the recommended level for going on a particular bounty, and I believe you will also get information about what loot you can get specific to that bounty. So you might want to farm a particular bounty over and over because you're looking for a specific type of loot. You'll also get to see an image of the boss, which, I don't know, maybe you'll know the characters. I don't know if the image really gives you that much information.
Listen,
But
when I play Slay the Spire, when I hit Act 3, I scroll to the top every time. I want to know, is it going to be a donut? Is it going to be a bird? Or is it going to be a stupid clock guy? Timekeeper, man.
Timekeeper? Timekeepers. Yeah. It depends on your run, but Timekeeper is the stealer of joy.
He's good against all the things I like to do. Anyways,
Unless
different game.
Unless you're playing Defect, and then Birdman's stealer of joy.
Yeah. Different game. Talking about Mercenaries. But also, it's worth noting. So I went back for research for the article. I went back and I watched BlizzCon Line, where Kibler and Ben Lee talked about Mercenaries for exactly 5 minutes, with no visual aids, about what is this game mode going to be. 6 months later, we got a lot of information, but not a lot of answers. And he mentioned that it was heavily inspired by a lot of peers in the genre of strategy games. And so, Edelweiss, we've talked about Slay the Spire, we've talked about Darkest Dungeon, we've talked about Fire Emblem, you're about to talk about Darkest Dungeon, again, and D&D Dark Alliance. Is this like a pastiche of, like an homage pastiche of a bunch of different games put together because the team likes all of them and they want to put them together?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's exactly what happened. This whole game feels like someone came into work and said, hey, what if we made an RPG? And then another person was like, oh yeah, I play this one, but I don't like this part of it. It's almost just taking the most beloved parts or memorable parts, I don't know, of all these different games that people really enjoyed and putting them together. It feels like the RPG that would come together if I like fell asleep and was dreaming about the best, the most perfect RPG or something. And it's light in the RPG genre, right? This isn't your Baldur's Gate grand D&D like RPG, but it's very much an RPG and draws on inspiration from a bunch of RPGs. So yeah, I feel like I had a reference for everything, every part of this game already. And that's why I was able to follow the video so much on a first watch.
It's interesting who I've talked to that says I instantly understand this, because there have been a few, not very many. Obviously not very many. I think we've kind of reached a conclusion that this was too dense for most of the audience, but there are a lot of people that had watched a lot of this and that picked it up pretty fast. Avantis and Zeroshio over in Hero Power were really familiar with what was going on over here. Pasca in our Discord was really had a good idea of what was happening. And I think that excitement for this mode is justified. It's just a question of how much that compared to your fear of your own impulse control, of Blizzard's ability to exploit your impulse control, and also, is the gameplay going to be compelling? From what I can tell from the influences here, we're talking about tactical RPGs, roguelikes, and Slay the Spire. We're checking a lot of boxes for me personally right now. A lot of things are going on here that I want to do. So I'm also, like, of course I'm curious about the monetization and how much time investment is it, and, like, is the gameplay going to be dynamic enough for me, and whatever, and so on. And also I really like playing Constructed Hearthstone, so, like, am I going to do this instead of Constructed Hearthstone? I don't know. But I feel like just looking at this as a blend of really fun games in the genre, with some of the trappings of the terrifying title of the gacha game, but with Hearthstone, the new Hearthstone approach to making that more accessible with dupe protection and crafting and whatever. I think there's a lot of potential here. I think there's a lot going on here that could very well speak to a lot of current players and new players.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really excited. But
all right.
So these are the most zoomed out details. I wasn't sure if I was going to include them, but I feel like we have time. You have a village, which I refer to as the hub. I've seen this in a few different kinds of games. Raid Shadow Legends, which I barely played just to help someone, but D&D Dark Alliance has this, where, you know, every time you finish a mission, you go back to the hub, you can buy things, you can practice fighting, whatever. And Darkest Dungeon, which I love, like, the hub is such a big part of that game. You can build and upgrade things in it, and you know, you're upgrading your structures throughout the game. It's like, that's how it's a roguelite, is your base gets better over the course of the game, which is how your progression works, even though you know, characters die and it's permadeath. So we're going to start with just the workshop. And people are a little concerned about this because they're like, oh, but structures we know cost gold and only gold. Why do I just start with the workshop? Am I just going to have to spend a bunch of gold right away to get these things? It's pretty common for this kind of thing in a mobile game to start you out with, like, just the workshop, but then they'll give you, like, the first few important structures for free and use it as part of a, like, tutorial of, like, here's how you use the workshop. So I would be very surprised if we don't effectively start with more than just the workshop. It's just that, you know, in a very detailed sense, you start with just the workshop. But moving on from that, you've got your tavern, which is your collection manager. Since you start with 8 mercenaries, this is another part of why I think you're going to build your tavern pretty quick. Yeah, this is just where you go in and you look at your characters and make upgrades and things. It's, you know, very much like your collection manager for your cards.
I expect that workshop and tavern, those are probably free buildings. And I imagine that most of these will be... I think there is a fear of, I'm going to have to spend next expansion's gold to build buildings and upgrade them. I'd be pretty surprised if that was the case overall. Like, I'm sure there's a way to earn these upgrades by just playing a bunch of mercs. I mean, I guess we'll see. I don't know what upgrades normally give to these sorts of buildings.
Well, and it depends how you think about it, right? Mercs will go towards XP on your reward track, which gets you gold. So it may be mercs taking care of itself because you're getting the gold from playing mercs, but you might still feel like that's not what's happening because gold is a universal pool, and so you're playing the other games too and getting gold from them. It's kind of a mindset thing.
Yeah. And so I had an analogy about this yesterday, because I do so like analogies. There are people that have, I think, somewhat reasonable fear of, I'm going to have the same amount of gold that I usually have, but I'm going to have more to do. Isn't that worse for me as a player? So we know from Iksar's tweets that there will be Merc-specific rewards from playing Mercs, and it's going to give XP and all that. It's just going to be more to do and whatever. But the analogy I used, I like a restaurant called Shake Shack. They make a very good cheeseburger. They make good shakes too, but I guess you'd like it there. So they have added, in the past couple of years, the Chicken Shack to the menu. It is a delicious chicken sandwich. Really, really great. Some days I prefer it to the burger. So now, instead of going there and always getting the same order, 2 burgers, no fries, and a beer. The fries are bait. Don't get the fries. Now I have to decide, is it a chicken sandwich and a burger? Is it double chicken? Am I that hungry? And so they've added more items to the menu. It's more choice for me as a consumer. That's good. Making the choice feels like it sucks in the moment because I like both options. But having the option to make that choice is better than having no choice at all, because I'd rather have the choice of not getting the chicken sandwich versus no chicken sandwich at all. I can eat more if I'm feeling it. And usually when I'm halfway through that second sandwich, I say, oh, I shouldn't have done this. Right? Like, that's just it. But sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll only get one thing, and I'll make a different choice for next time. The restaurant adding the additional item is better for me as a consumer, even if in the moment it feels like I'm missing out on something. If the fear of missing out, the FOMO, as is discussed around, of course, most things in gacha games, FOMO is a big driver. I'd rather have the choice than not have it, because I am confident in my impulse control unless I'm really hungry and I buy a Shake Shack, which I guess makes this metaphor kind of dangerous. But I'm happy that the restaurant has more items on the menu, even if I can't eat all of them every day. This makes me want to go back to the restaurant, and in this case, the restaurant is Hearthstone, and I'll just play more Hearthstone overall. You all get it. You all get the idea.
I really loved when you made that analogy, because it just explained it so perfectly, I think. Because in my head, I knew that I didn't agree, but it was like a little hard for me to put it into words. You put that out.
Any metaphor makes more sense when it's talking about burgers and chicken sandwiches.
Of course, that's the answer here. Yeah. Our third structure is the travel point, and this is your mission selection. So when you see a screen that's got like 6 bounties, there's like recommended level 4, recommended level 6, recommended level 8. That's happening in the travel point. There will be higher difficulties after you've defeated like a lower difficulty. You can do harder bounties, and that is accessible through upgrading the travel point. And there will be like visual change as you upgrade it. Then you have the PvP, which is the fighting pit. You are not going to be able to see enemy intents because they're making decisions in the same command phase as you are. So, and that would obviously be broken if you knew what your opponent was going to do in PvP. But you are going to be paired against a similar power level. So that means, theoretically, based on the strength of your mercenaries, I don't know if there will be like huge strength disparities between rarities, but I'm guessing this is going to be mostly like a level thing. So if the level of your characters and the level of their abilities and equipment compared to some other players, the idea is you don't want players to queue up against someone that's their similar rating but has like way better party. You're not just going to get beaten because you're out leveled.
This, I think, is also the biggest indicator this is not going to be pay to win. If it's collection-based and level-based matchmaking, you're just not going to fight people that have spent more money than you. And that seems like a good thing, which is also not too far from where Hearthstone, on the traditional side, has landed with MMR, that if you graduate from the new player ranks, like with a bunch of core cards and a new deck that the game gives you, you're not going to face people that are smurfing. We've seen some tweets from people that, like, they make new accounts on EU or whatever, and they zoom out of the new player ranks and they have a 11x all of a sudden, because the system is doing everything it can to get you as far away from actual new players as quickly as possible. And it can pull you back if it needs to, but it needs to get you away from the speed bumps. Does not want you driving over people. And so I imagine Mercenaries will be somewhat similar. There's someone that just, like, drops a bunch of money, and then you're playing with all the freebies. I do not anticipate you will be paired with that person. It seems pretty likely, given what we know.
Yeah, that'll be a pretty important part of the PvP experience. I believe there will also be a leaderboard, and I don't know if it's going to be based on rating? I would assume it's based on like just how you win. So this then means assuming you're facing people of similar power level, and you've got a person with like level 8 characters, but they're facing other people with level 8 characters, and they're just like beating all of them. Maybe that could still get you on the leaderboard, even when some people are playing like level 30 characters against people with similar power level. Yeah, should be interesting. Next, we have the Merchant Cart, and this is the Mercenary specific in-game shop, so you can buy Mercenaries packs or coins, and there's definitely going to be special offers. Like, yes, there's the pre-orders now, but if you are, hesitant and just want to dive in for free, I think there will be more bundles down the line. So don't be concerned about that.
So let's talk about econ. While we're here, while we're at the merchant cart, why don't we talk about economy a little bit? Because I think this is important, even though we know that there are a whole lot of Merc-specific currencies coming. Because obviously they're going to put Sour Francs and Kelthos in the game. We know that's happening, for sure, because it happened in the Concede Discord, so they're contractually obligated to do it. But economy, well, we've kind of danced around it for a while, but there are a few things that we learned about the economy that seem really important.
Yeah. So I say the economy is kind of like League of Legends or MTGA or Hearthstone. A pack contains one mercenary, so you'll always be getting a new mercenary. It contains coins, which are mercenary specific, and possibly portraits. The coins can, in fact, craft the mercenary that they are for, and they also are used to upgrade them. So if you're, taking a while to open a mercenary you want, but you're getting their coins, you can use the coins to get that mercenary. The really, really big point with the economy, though, is that there is duplicate protection still. Now, this wasn't always in Hearthstone. At launch, we did not have duplicate protection, and you were very sad if you opened, say, the Warlock quest in Ungoro 3 times.
I'm glad that we all thought of the same person immediately. Shoutouts to Wicked Good. He's great. Go listen to Off Curve. He opened 3 Lucari sacrifices, at least 1 in Golden.
Yeah. So this is better than Hearthstone was at launch because that sucked. And then we got duplicate protection. So they're just carrying it over to Mercenaries. Yeah. And
do you remember that video?
Stress this enough.
Yeah.
For gacha, this is like unreal.
Yeah, this never happens. Do you remember that video during TGT of the guy who opened 6 Bolfs? That was the best. 6 Bolf Ram Shields. If you don't know what Bolf Ram Shield is, nobody does. But yeah, there was a person during TGT that opened. Yeah, it's a 3/9 that
when you take damage. It takes it.
Yeah, if your hero would take damage, it takes the damage for you. And it's very strange card. So he opened 6 Bolfs in his TGT pack opening, which is too many. I'm gonna say it. That was too many.
Not a lot you can do with that many Bolfs.
No.
But yeah, for gacha, usually it's considered like, very kind gacha if there's something useful to do with your duplicates. Like turning them into some kind of resource. So the fact that you just have duplicate protection, like you're just not going to get duplicates until you own all of the thing, that's really, really huge. In terms of the things you're actually going to be opening, for Mercenaries, you can expect 1 epic in about 5 packs on average, and 1 legendary per 20 packs on average.
Of note, this is identical to current Hearthstone packs. They don't explicitly list the pity timer, much like they don't on normal Hearthstone packs. But the current system is, you get an epic every 10 packs minimum, legendary every 40 packs minimum, and you get a guaranteed legendary in the first 10 packs you open, that is exactly the same as Mercenaries. So, should be an identical pity timer, an identical average for both legendaries and epics, and they're still only the 3 rarities. Really interesting to see this as well. That's so similar to what we have now.
Yep. The next thing is you also have rarities of coins, and the rates for that are a little more awkward to calculate, but they've listed them as you will get about 12 rare coins in 10 packs on average, about 10 epic coins in 10 packs on average, and about 8 legendary coins in 10 packs on average. So we don't know yet how many coins you'll need to make a particular mercenary, but the rates of coins, 8 legendary coins in 10 packs, it feels like you could pretty reasonably be able to craft a legendary from just like playing and getting packs.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I think that given the team's responses so far, they feel pretty good about it, and also given the team's response to their rewards track, if it ends up not being good, they'll make it good. But again, the issue with the sales pitch was about how it didn't assuage these fears really all that effectively. There's definitely the question of like, because each mercenary has their own merc buck, how many of those are you likely to open? How likely you are to be able to craft it? We won't know until we see and experience all of this. And we also don't even know how important all this stuff is. Like, we don't know if you'll need, what you'll need either.
And this is kind of where I feel like it's a bit like League of Legends economy, because in their loot boxes, you can get like champion specific, I think they're like shards or something. And if you get a certain number, then you can make that champion. But also you can open portraits for champions. And you can make the portrait, or I think if you have enough of the portrait, you maybe also can make the champion. It's like some weird thing. Hearthstone Mercenaries version of that is, and I think I read this right, they said if you open a portrait for a mercenary that you don't own, you can play them with that portrait, which my interpretation is that you will maybe just sort of be getting a taste of them. Like maybe you can start to play them and level them up and use their one ability, but can't actually upgrade or do anything with them because you just have the portrait, not the whole mercenary. That's a weird line that I don't really know how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I don't really know either. But the way that I read it is that if you high roll and open a cosmetic for a hero that you don't have, you still get to play with that hero because you open the cosmetic. But we don't know for sure. It is a very strange and unusual line.
So it's basically a Hearthstone economy. The crafting amounts is the only part that's really in the dark right now. But these percentages, if you compare them to other gacha games, they're way better. Because other gacha games are pretty well known for having low rates. That usually they have a star system, and it's your percent chance of getting a 5-star unit. And for Fire Emblem Heroes, it was 6% or sometimes 8%. Tales of Cristoria, 5%. Dragalia Lost, 4%. Like, it just keeps going down. There's a 3%, and then a 2%. Fate Grand Order, notoriously bad, 1% of a 5-star. And then Genshin Impact, with the 0.6% of pulling a 5-star character. And it has definitely made the most money, and it is definitely the most popular.
Pretty amazing how that works. It's also a good game, but like, it's
a really good game. And this is where I think the gacha genre is very controversial, is like they obviously make a killing. They do to some extent take advantage of people having poor impulse control. But there are some that are legit good games and fun to play, like Genshin Impact. Honestly, I really enjoyed playing Fire Emblem Heroes. I just had to come to the realization that it like wasn't healthy for my schedule. I think you're gonna want to be careful about how you engage with this kind of game if you haven't played a gacha before. But I think ultimately Hearthstone Mercenaries is gonna be like the most forgiving gacha game on the planet.
It's amazing how Hearthstone has made its presence known as a platform by taking a really expensive genre and not making it cheap, but making it way better than the rest in the genre. Because Hearthstone, compared to Magic the Gathering, well, I mean, it's anyone that's played paper Magic the Gathering. This I don't need to keep talking. You know. But back in the day when I started playing, I sold a single Magic Online deck for 200-something tickets, and then bought all of Hearthstone at the time. Like, just everything. Just all of it. And then, comparing Mercenaries as we know it to a gacha, it's not cheap. It's potentially still a bunch of money, but compared to other gacha games, it's way cheaper. Complicated. It's a complicated feeling. It's a lot of emotions to work with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, leaving the merchant cart to go to our final location on the village hub after the economy tangent, there will be a mailbox.
Yay!
There's two more locations. I'm sorry, I almost forgot the most important one. Mailbox is in-game announcements. You'll check it for special events. The last one is the campfire. And I think I heard people saying that they loved the marshmallows theme that's kind of going in this mode.
It's Battlegrounds has donuts. This game Mercenaries has marshmallows. And Hearthstone, traditional Hearthstone, you all know what the food is, right? Funnel cakes! Funnel cakes!
Of course.
Funnel cakes have been in so many expansions, Spartacus. Don't make that face at me. Audio listeners, I know you can hear his face. He's making it. It's very audible. Yeah, the mailbox is something that I wish we had for the other modes. I hope we get them.
I mean, we kind of, like, we don't have a place for them. They just
we get
pop up
pop-ups.
in front of you. Yeah.
But I don't, the first pop-up we got from Mercenaries was logging in after the presentation by Diablo, which, by the way, his currency is Diabloons, in case you were wondering. It's, just, you start the game, it's like, what is Mercenaries and why do I have to buy Diablo? I'm gonna keep going with these puns about currency. Like, this is not gonna stop, really,
it's never
ever.
Gonna end.
No.
Don't release the list of all the Mercenaries yet.
I'm gonna take the day off work for that. So I think that's gonna wind us down. But I feel Mercsplained. So thank you for that, Edelweiss. Glad you put this together, and it's taken a few days to process. Like, the pitch was so poor for so many people, but the content here, with all that we've had to, put it together and cross-reference and pause the video and look at the article and pull it all together, and like, it's a lot of work to work this hard to figure out why the game is going to be fun, but it's also 6 weeks before release. And a lot of the feedback, it seems like they've heard, indicates to me that we're gonna see some show matches of, like, people just playing Mercenaries when it's close to release. I'm really, really hopeful for two things. I put this in the article, besides the gameplay showcase. Put some demo content in the game before launch. Like, let us play Mercenaries before the official launch. And then also extend the pre-orders to the first full week of release. Allow me to buy a pre-order on October 15th if I've played a ton of Mercenaries that week or whatever. And maybe I won't even want one. Maybe I'll just be the PvE and be like, this is good enough. But, like, allow people to play as much as possible before they have to spend money, and make the game the reason they want to spend money, not because you asked them to up front for Diablo. Well, the Diablo looks pretty. I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, I got Sylvanas, and if I really love the mode and they extended the bundles out, I would probably get Diablo as well.
If the mode is fun and we have the money, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to there being a future where I spend money on this too. But as of right now, my current plan, play PvE for free with the 8 free characters and also keep an eye out for more gameplay. That's the plan. So, the plan is also to thank many folks, because we have a lot of people we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, Concede.com. You can find our content info, our show notes, and our patron information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doge TK, Proby1, Crush, Cap, P, Squatch, David P, Snowpack, Lucky, Fade to Black, Walu, Ponius, Itinerant Wizard. Proby1, thank you for the 5 gift subs during the show. Really appreciate it. All right, Coin Concede, Spartacus, go.
I would like to coin concede to Grazzler18 on Twitter, who asked a very nice question about, having some positive thoughts in Hearthstone, which had Hat tweet out a very nice thing about the first time we got to play Battlegrounds together, and it was good to see some positivity going around the Hearthstone Twitter sphere. So thank you for asking this kind of question in a time where some people are not being so positive, and it was just nice to see some positivity going around.
Agree. Advice.
So my first coin concede is to Clark Hellscream. I was wanting some advice on video editing software to get into if I want to maybe do some YouTube videos. We'll see. And yeah, he gave me some suggestions. So excited to start on that. Coin concede as well to Wicked Good and Lucre. I managed to get a couple of streams in this past week, and they each threw me a raid. So coin concede to them.
And I would like to coin concede to the Coin Concede Discord for making me laugh all day today at Discord and subsequently inflicting pain upon Bodicus and Edelweiss here during the show. Thank you so much, everyone. It was one of my favorite threads of the week. Also, I'm going to coin concede over to Blizzlet for having on Just a Guy 66, also known as Papa Georgiou, Cora and Sage's dad, over there on Blizzlet. Must listen episode. Go out of your way for that. Really, really great. So, that's going to be our show. Keep calm and save your Kelthas, laddies. And if you see us on ladder, Bru'Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede. Was that pause because you were trying to think of one, or was it just the shame?
Nope, that deserved an audible pause.
I'm going to leave it in the show. No, wait, you're editing. You leave it in the show. Stop him recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate you coming on one of our off nights. Still a good number of people here. You're great. Hope you know that you're great. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night.
Stopping stream.